cannot be justified. How can it be justified when they just bash into the office and then started searching everywhere and then arresting people for no reason? So the arrest cannot be justified.
Nigerian media is again threatened with the arrest of journalists by the police on the orders of the Nigerian army. Now the big question is Nigeria again sliding into anti-democratic days when the media is gagged from playing its role as the fourth estate of the realm? That's our first big story this morning. All right, thanks for joining us this lovely Monday morning on TVC Breakfast. I am Mike Okwocha.
And a very good morning to you. I am Ngozi Alibu, also coming up.
Thank all Gambians for keeping it peaceful and waiting for this day. For this is a day of that we are congratulating Adama Barrow, President Barrow, and we are welcoming him to come here and lead us.
Gambians indeed are grateful. Finally, calm returns to the Gambia after several weeks of political turmoil. Now, they are awaiting the return of newly sworn-in President Adama Barrow, while former President Yahya Jammeh goes on exile. And that's talk time this morning.
TVC Breakfast discussions begin in a moment. Because the whole weekend was all about Yahya Jammeh.
Yes.
Yahya Jammeh
Yes.
everywhere, and all of that. It's
Yes,
quite
and the
interesting,
people,
honestly.
not only Gambians themselves, grateful that a crisis has been averted. The rest of Africa is grateful. Indeed, the rest of the world. And you know, what happened over the weekend? Friday, Saturday. Is it not instructive of the gap that is between Africa and a place like the United States, where you had a peaceful handover of power from one government to another? And, you know, in Africa, it still is a struggle.
Yeah, but we are seeing it, the dynamics are changing now. We see ECOWAS rising up to the occasion. No, we don't want this anymore. You have to respect democratic standards and all of that. So it's really a change from what it used to be. Because we used to call for, where is ECOWAS? Where's
AU?
You know, where are all these SADC? Why are they not saying anything? Why are they not doing anything? But this time we see they're really doing something. So
obviously, hopefully this is a pointer to the fact, or to African leaders, that it's no longer business
as usual.
As usual, you cannot take the people for granted anymore.
Especially when they have spoken by their ballots.
Okay. Well, this seems to be the new day. This is not the first time Nigerian journalists will be harassed by the military or the police, as the case may be. But what makes this arrest different from other arrests in the past is a system of government in operation at this time. And those arrests were carried out during the military era, but this happened at a time when the country's democracy has almost entered its 18th year. If I have the permission to do this, okay. All right.
Okay.
Now you can talk.
This, I can write.
And your arms
very good. Now I can write. Now I can talk.
Unbound. I would say good
Wow.
riddance.
That's it. Now the media can talk, and we are open now to talk. Now the point there is, we are joined now by a lawyer, Tosin Akonde, and he'll be discussing this with us. Good morning, Tosin. It's good to see you, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year from me as well.
You know, when you
Good
gag
morning.
the media, the whole country is also gagged. That's what it means. And we have joining us on Skype a journalist, Larry Arugundade and Larry, good morning. It's nice to see you join us right now.
Good morning. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. And you?
Well,
Now,
Okay.
Mike,
also
did you
fine
see-
when it's attack on press freedom.
I was gagged in here and I was struggling to talk and I couldn't talk, I couldn't write, but it's good I was safe now.
Indeed, and my reaction
Yes.
was typical of how do you react in that kind of situation? In whose place is it to ungag the media?
The media had to ungag the media.
Okay.
That was what you did to me.
All right.
But however, and then on phone is the editor-in-chief, Premium Times newspaper, Musikilu Mojid. Musikilu, good morning. It's good to have you join us right now.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Now, before we go into the discussion proper, let's take you down memory lane on what this issue really is. I will play you this report and then we get along.
All right, it all started on December the 12th, 2016, when the Chief of Army Staff, in the person of Tukur Buratai, accused or alleged that the Premium Times publication, an online newspaper, if you will, had reported erroneously, according to the military, that the Chief of Army Staff was to appear before the Code of Conduct Bureau, the CCB, to answer to questions of false assets declaration. And of course, reported also, talking about the Premium Times, that the military has been carrying out some operations against Boko Haram in rather questionable manner. According to the COAS, the Chief of Army Staff, the Premium Times had reported that some 83 soldiers had been missing and still remain missing, and so many other allegations.
And in the midst of that, the Chief of Army Staff had called on Premium Times to retract that editorial report and also tender an apology to the military. And in response to that, the Premium Times said, no, in fact, there was, through their lawyer, they had said that they had evidences and all of that, and they brought it up, all the reports to back up their evidence, or to back up their evidence to back up their report, rather, and rather even asked the military to tender an apology and even a retraction on the call for them to apologize and all of that. So that has been the issue, and that led into the arrest of the editor and reporter at Premium Times. So we still have in the studio with us a lawyer, Tosin Akonde. Tosin, it's good to have you join us really this morning.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
And we also have a journalist, Larry Arugundade, joining us on Skype. We also have editor-in-chief, Premium Times newspaper, Musikilu Mojid, joining us. Now, gentlemen, it's good to have you join us right now. Now, Tosin, let me start with you here. In the eyes of the law, when we have an issue where a newspaper or any media station comes up with any report, whether it is you don't like it or it is even false, let us assume that it's false. In that kind of situation, what are the ideals to go by?
Well, thank you. On the face of it, in the eye of the law, the only option available to Lieutenant General Buratai was for him to have sought redress in court, all right, because he would have established or failed to, ground defamation. Now, the newspaper, in its report, in a counter, statement, have said, no, we did our job, and that's what it would have also amounted to in the court of law, wherein defense, the best defense or the best justification, the best defense to label matters is justification. We did our report, we are right accurate in our report, so you can't gag us or intimidate us to apologize for speaking out to the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and to the entire world in general. So I'm a little bit taken aback. In a democratic setting, the military authorities in Nigeria still think they can act uncontrollably in the face of democracy, in the face of modernization, and the country has been evolving over time. So, and that brings to question the degree of training some of these army officers actually got before they rose to the top.
All right, let me bring in Musikiliu Mojid, who is the publisher, of course, editor-in-chief of Premium Times newspaper. Let's hear it from the horse's mouth. The Chief of Army Staff has accused Premium Times of attempts to malign and impugn the good character of the Chief of Army Staff. Of course, that's coming from the Nigerian military. Now, in this reportage and with other stories that you have to put out there, how do you draw the line between holding back in terms of what could be termed as libelous and putting other facts out there?
Well, I don't know if you have followed our reporting, our journalism. Our journalism is rooted in firm ethics and patriotism. So in everything that we do, we stick to the ethics and tenets of journalism. Now, the Chief of Army Staff complained about 3 stories, which you highlighted earlier in this discussion. He said we wrote that he was to appear before the Code of Conduct Bureau. Of course, that is true. The Code of Conduct Bureau wrote in response to an inquiry by the Civil Society Network Against Corruption. The Code of Conduct Bureau wrote that they were expecting Lieutenant General Buratai to appear before them to explain, to shed light on the asset declaration he made. They said that his appearance was being delayed by the work he's doing in the north, the fight against Boko Haram, which was what we reported. In that letter, the Code of Conduct Bureau informed CISNAC that it was going to update CISNAC as the event unfolded. But that never happened. So we got that letter written to CISNAC by the Code of Conduct Bureau, which was what we reported, that the Chief of Army Staff was going to appear before the Code of Conduct Bureau to shed light on his asset declaration. So we don't know where we libeled him here, if we are reporting facts. Then the second story, he said we reported that 3 soldiers went missing. If you remember when this incident happened, Nigerians weren't told the facts about the incident, that soldiers went missing. It was only when we reported that soldiers went missing that after 2 or 3 weeks, they admitted that indeed soldiers went missing. But they refused to tell us how many soldiers went missing, and we kept asking, and they refused. It was only after we now reported that they've now admitted to family members of the missing soldier that, look, we can't find your loved one. That they now said, okay, the only 40-something soldiers were missing. But between when we reported and when they admitted, of course, some of the missing soldiers returned to the barracks. So, but they assumed that since we don't have a nominal rule or a head count of the soldiers, that we have no evidence of what we were reporting. Now, only recently did they admit that they now found the remains of 16 of the soldiers. So now, even ask the military today, they are complaining that we said 83 soldiers went missing, whereas the number of soldiers that went missing were less than 83. Why did they not come forth with the actual number? Why were they holding information? Even as we speak, the military is yet to come forth with information about that incident. Then the third story is about they said we reported that a pastor was killed in Port Harcourt and that the military labeled him a kidnapper. Yet, that story was sourced from their own press releases. As you know, the Army sends out press statements every day through PR Nigeria, one agency that distributes press statements for the police, for the military. And they sent out a press statement saying that they've killed some kidnappers. Attached to that press statement was the photograph of this pastor who went missing and whose corpse. So when the family saw the photograph, they contacted us to say, after we published, they contacted us to say, no, this pastor went missing. He could not have, he was kidnapped. So now, so we use the military's own statement to do a story. How can that be libelous?
All right, Musikilu, according to the Nigerian military, Premium Times did not revert to to the Nigerian military, to get their own side of the story. But let's find out from Lanre Arogundade. The same question that I asked Musikilu, where do you draw the line between reporting the truth, the fact, and what may be termed as libelous?
Well, it's difficult, really, because when a reporter sets out to do his or her story, he or she is doing so based on the facts available to that reporter. Of course, we expect every reporter to cross-check their facts and to seek the other side of the story in doing their report. But where somebody or an institution that is affected by a story has one complaint or the other, the right thing to do is to resort to the instrumentality of the properly established authorities. I'm not talking of constituted authority now, to seek redress. Now, in this instance, the Chief of Army Staff or the Nigerian Army claimed that he was defamed, by that report. Now, if you are claiming defamation, the right thing to do, as the lawyer in the studio has said, is to go to court to seek redress. But don't forget the fact too that we have regulatory agencies that work in the realm of the media. So let us assume that the Chief of Army Staff feels that Premium Times was, carried out what you could call an act of professional misconduct. Then one would expect them to report the matter to the Nigerian Press Council or any other media regulatory agency. But you see, if you look at the facts of this case, the action of the police was actually premeditated. This issue was already in the public domain, the dispute between the Army Chief of Staff and Premium Times. And Premium Times itself actually said, we will write our lawyers because of the grave allegations you have made against us. Now, the police cannot be acting on the same petition and be invading the premises of a media outlet and in fact arresting the publisher and the reporter. For us, this amounts to assault on press freedom. But I'd like to quickly point out that the attacks on journalists in recent time didn't start with Premium Times, because at the International Press Center, under our Nigerian Journalist Safety Initiative, we do monitor incidents of attacks on journalists, and we do release our reports on a quarterly basis. The last report, which we released, late last year, when we were marking the International Day of Impunity against journalists, showed that many reporters across Nigeria were being arrested during the governorship elections in Edo State. 11 journalists and media workers were swooped upon by the state security, claiming that they were looking for hoodlums in an hotel. And at the end of the day, the only hoodlums, so-called, that they arrested were 11 journalists.
All right, Larry.
Identity cards of them.
Yeah, Larry, let's come back to you shortly. Larry, I'll come back to you shortly after now. We're going on a break now, and then we'll come back for you to round off your point. We're going out on TVC Entertainment. Viewers there can continue with TVC Breakfast on TVC Nigeria on Concert Channel 190 and DSTV Channel 418. All
right, continue to watch the show on Go TV 45 and ACTV 510. Stay with us.
Right, if you're just joining us, you're watching TVC Breakfast. And on this segment, we are discussing the recent row between the Nigerian military and Premium Times newspaper. We have in the studio Tosin Akonde, a lawyer. We also have joining us on Skype, Lanre Arogundade joining us. And we also have the editor-in-chief of Premium Times newspaper, Musikilu Mojid. Now, Lanre, you were making a point before we went on break.
Well, just to summarize my point, the army authorities cannot be the accuser they cannot be the prosecutor and they cannot be the judge in their own case. And the point really is that they need to seek necessary redress if they feel that aggrieved about the report of a Premium Times, and that is the point. And like I was trying to say, we see a kind of pattern, emerging, where journalists are repeatedly attacked, for doing their story. Are you with me?
Yes, we are.
Of course.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
So is this pattern that is becoming worrisome? Don't forget that before the incident of Premium Times, we also had the incident of Showore of Sahara Reporters, where the police said, well, there was a petition against him, that was why we arrested him. So we're also trying to make the point that the police authorities should at least endeavor to carry out some investigation. And if they need to talk, to a journalist, it should be done, in a civil manner. Because what we see is a presumption of guilt, whereas there should be a presumption of innocence on the part of the police authorities until otherwise is proved.
Okay. All right, Lanre. Gentlemen, let's give Nigerians some historical background as to how it has been
how we got
so
to
far
this,
and
how we got to this
here.
level.
Now, attacks on journalists in Nigeria gained prominence in the 80s when the founder of Newswatch magazine, Delegiwa, was killed by a parcel bomb in his Lagos home on October the 19th, 1986. Till today, his killers have not been arrested.
Right, then in 1995, Chris Anyanwu, the publisher of the Sunday magazine, was jailed for 7 years over treasonable allegations regarding her report on a failed coup d'etat against the government of Sani Abacha.
In 1993, the Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria, FRCN, dismissed a newscaster, Ladi Lawal, for casting the day's news without prior vetting by the military.
And then in 1990, the Punch newspaper was sealed from April 29th to May 20th. The offense was that the government viewed the news item on the Gideon Oka coup too detailed and informative.
Now, this wanton arrest and detention did not stop at members of the press alone. It extended to their immediate family, wife, children, friends, and well-wishers with no respect for age, sex, or social status. A known example is the case of a nursing mother, Ladi Olorunyomi. Coincidentally, she is the wife of Dapo Olorunyomi, the same man who has been arrested by security operatives, and that was last Thursday. In 1990, Mrs. Olorunyomi was arrested and detained at the Alagbon prisons, along with her 3-month-old baby, when the military could not get her husband arrested.
And in 1992, Ken Sarawiwa, a Nigerian writer, television producer, environmental activist, was imprisoned for several months without trial by the Nigerian army government or military government at the time. And in 1993, he was re-arrested, accused of incitement to them. He was imprisoned for more than a year before being found guilty and sentenced to death by a specially convened tribunal.
And more recently, the publisher of an Akwa Ibom-based newspaper, Ntiebet John, was arraigned for reporting that the state deputy governor pocketed 250 million, or pockets 250 million monthly as security vote. Now, those are cases of abuse against journalists during the military era. Well, back to today, under democratic dispensation.
That's a big question right now, and I'm going to bring Tosin in here now. The point there is we know how he has been in the military era. The military era had seen all of those, but here we are right now. In fact, from the beginning of this democracy in 1999 until now, this is not the first time there has been assault on journalists and the press, as the case may
Correct.
be. Would it be good to see, or would it be appropriate to say that all the institutions, like the military in this case, don't have the understanding of how these things work for them to attack the
I think we need to tackle the issue headlong, and begin to probably ask the military to include civil engagement or civil operations in their trainings. I know they have an establishment within their rank and file. They call it TRADOC, Training and Doctrines, the Army Training and Doctrines. So I guess they need to understand this, because whether in the military setting or out of it, the army remains the army. You know, there's this saying on the streets that soldier go, soldier come, barrack remains. The barrack is a part, an inseparable part of the Nigerian army, the Nigerian military. So that thing it's in their wiring, it's in their make. So they don't seem to recognize whether we are in a democratic era or undemocratic era. The urge, the zeal to be, to abuse powers, the zeal to act recklessly is always found within them. So until they come to terms with that fact, you forgot to include in your report, this one is very interesting, Alfred Dieter Spiff, who flogged a reporter like a kid, called him out in the open and whipped his ass. So they've been doing this for long. But then we need to make them realize in military operations, even in media coverage of wars, the press has always been an issue. I remember in 1983, the case of the OECS, that's the Organization of the East Caribbean States, like the West African forces that invaded the Gambia to restore democracy. They did the same thing for the US-led, Reagan-led US. They begged the US to come into their country. And this issue of the press, allowing the press into battle operations, became rife. About 10 years later, in Somalia in 1993, I'll never forget, the image, just the image of a US dead soldier being carried on the streets of Mogadishu, fired the US Army, and then that was all they needed to quell the crisis in Somalia. So it's high time the military realizes that, listen, we need these guys to help us as part of our proper planning and execution of war strategies, not just as opponents.
Let me bring in Musikilu Mojid, if I can, at this point. Now, let's look at some of the claims by the Nigerian military. They allege that Premium Times did not revert or verify its claims about Buratai and army in its operations. What do you have to say about that?
What, for those who are familiar with Premium Times, they know that is not true. In every story that we do, we reach out to the military, we reach out to the army, and which is why we've done, hundreds of stories about the military and the operation in the Northeast. They count 40. But of late, the spokesperson to the army has become surprisingly antagonistic, to Premium Times, such that each time our reporters call him, in fact, there was a time I called him, the editor-in-chief of a newspaper, who deploys reporters to cover assignments, who supervise editors in the newspaper. I called him and I said, look, they're doing a particular story. And he said to me that he will only speak to my reporter, cover the beat. That was the first time in all the years that I've practiced journalism. That's the first time I will hear a spokesperson for an agency saying that to an editor-in-chief of a newspaper. And so each time our reporters call him, he will either abuse them or refuse to respond to their inquiry, or he will be sending them threat messages. So what do you expect us to do? Whenever he agrees to respond, we reflect his side. Whenever he refuses to do so, or he might even respond long after the stories are published. But one thing that we do in Premium Times, we've tried to be fair and balanced to everyone. Now, regarding that particular story of the Chief of Army Staff Asset Declaration, let's assume that after we publish, the Chief of Army Staff now received a letter from the Code of Conduct Bureau, either before we publish and after we publish, clearing him of any wrongdoing in asset declaration. What we expected him to do is to contact us to say, look, I've now been cleared. And of course, we will do a follow-up on the story. What is difficult with that? But, their new spokesperson has made it really, really difficult for us. He just does not appear to like Premium Times at all. And there's nothing we can do about that.
All right. When you say he doesn't seem to like the Premium Times, could it be a fallout from the ongoing activities right now? Just briefly.
No, not exactly. Okay. Number one, I remember he once complained. We have our own side guy. Our side guide does not allow us, for instance, to refer to an army general as General Buratai or Lieutenant. We say Tuko Buratai, Lieutenant General. He complained about something as petty as that.
Okay.
To say that why don't you refer to us as Colonel Sani Usman? Why do you say Sani Usman, a colonel? What is the difference in that? He studied mass communication. How come he does not understand that every newspaper has its in-house style?
In-house style. Okay. Musikilu, will come back to you after this. Let's go on a break and we come to dwell more on this topic. Stay with us on TVC Breakfast.
Right, welcome back. You're watching TVC Breakfast. We're looking at the face-off between the Nigerian military and the media. Well, this time it is about the premium times. Like many people would say, it may be premium times today. Who knows who next?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. And how is it possible that under a civilian administration, a democratic dispensation, that such seeming impunity can happen? Well, our guest in the studio is Tosin Akonde, a journalist and a lawyer. Lanre Arugundade is a journalist himself, is talking to us via Skype. And Musikilu Mojid is editor-in-chief of the said online newspaper that has this particular face-off with the military. Now, to you, Lanre, there are fears that the culture of impunity may just be finding its way back under this particular dispensation, this government that says it is zero tolerance for things like impunity and abuse of power. Do you have concerns that this might just be the beginning of
yes,
a bad
definitely.
trend?
We have a lot of concern because again, this government, presents itself as one that is actually fighting corruption, and then if you are fighting corruption, you need the media. And it's not just that you need the media, it is the constitutional responsibility of the media. You are well familiar with the fact that Section 22 of the Nigerian Constitution mandates the Nigerian media to monitor governance and hold the government accountable on behalf of the people. Now, that government includes all apparatus of government, including the army, the police, and other law enforcement agencies, who happen to be the ones that have this tendency to attack the media or attack journalists. Now, they need to understand the fact that we are joint stakeholders in the progress of this country. And at this particular point in time, they actually need the media, maybe more than the media needs them. Well, we need them because we owe our responsibility to the public at large. But if you look at what is happening around us, various acts of terrorism, various acts of militia men, kidnappers, and the rest of them, these are issues on which the press will necessarily ask questions from the law enforcement agencies. And they must be open-minded. They must be ready, to listen and dialogue, with journalists. If necessary, we might have a kind of national dialogue that brings everybody on a round table. But just for them to understand that the more you attack the media, the more you undermine democracy, and the more people are going to raise questions whether we're in a democratic dispensation or not. Now, Yahya Jammeh has just been removed in the Gambia through an election. What most people might not realize is the fact that one of the major reasons why Yahya Jammeh lost it with the Gambian public was his penchant for attacks on the media, including unresolved murder cases. That was the case of Dede Haidara, a media chief who was murdered under Yahya Jammeh's reign. So the rating of Gambia in the international community became extremely poor because of violation of human rights. So it is in the enlightened interest of this government to look at all these issues and ask themselves questions: where are we missing the points? Because as you know from the history that you have enumerated, even though journalists have been attacked, journalists have been killed, no dispensation, no government or regime had ever succeeded in suppressing the Nigerian media. We had always outlived governments. And I think this should be a historical lesson for this particular government. The activities of a few elements should not be allowed to derail the fact that in a democracy, the right to freedom of expression, the right to media freedom should be respected. And we're not saying that people do not have the right to complain. Where you have complaints, where you believe that you have an injustice has been done to you, make use of the instrumentality of the law or the instrumentality of the institutions established to look into such cases.
All right.
People should not take cases into their own hands. That is the point that we're trying to stress.
All right, Larry.
And in this particular,
I just see you were either nodding or shaking your head when he was talking, when Larry was talking about putting the Constitution.
I just think there is a stronger point in the Constitution, much more stronger than Section 22, which he had cited. Section 22 is part of the Chapter 2 of the Constitution, which the Nigerian authorities will tell you the provisions are non-justiciable. You can't act upon them in the courts. You know, so they have a moral effect. They are not binding. But Section 39 is the onerous. That's the El Dorado. That's the utmost strength that the Nigerian journalists will have. And that talks about the human rights. Section 39 spells out clearly the rights of the Nigerian media. It says freedom of expression and of the media. So that's a stronger one, which Nigerian journalists
is guaranteed.
100%. It's 100% guaranteed. So that's a surer one than Section 22.
But should freedom of expression have some kind of limitation in such a way that a media organization, whether it is online or the conventional media that we know, should have some kind of self-censorship?
Yes, there is. And that's why a lot of Nigerians need to receive some degree of education, however minor, on Sections 33 to Sections 46 of our Constitution, which spells out our human rights, because we all are human beings. I used to tell them that, look, every Nigerian can't be a lawyer, but every Nigerian is a human being. So human rights need to be explained in total, even to media houses, so that a corp reporter can give a pocket lecture on what constitutes to his rights when, in the face of assault. Section 45, that's the meat. Section 45 of the Nigerian Constitution talks about the limitations to all of the rights that you have. And it lists the instances in the interest of public safety, public defense, public morality, public good. Then certain rights will be curtailed.
Okay. All right, let's bring in, let me bring in Musikilu in here. Now, Musikilu, can you give us an idea? When you received complaints from the military, what steps did they take towards you? How did they approach you first? Can you give us an idea into that aspect of things?
Well, the military really never approached us. All we saw one day was that the theater commander in Borno, in the northeast, calling a press conference and then gathering journalists, and then having that press conference televised live across Nigeria and accusing us of supporting Boko Haram. As if we were aiding terrorism in our country, that people should be wary of us, that Nigerians should know that we are those promoting Boko Haram and supporting them. It was a shock that our country's army that we have reported for years, that we have promoted, without even coming to us to complain about anything, went on live TV to disparage us, endangering our lives. Just imagine to be described as supporting Boko Haram in this country. We all know the atrocity Boko Haram has committed in our country. You know that Nigerians are genuinely angry about Boko Haram, and only for you to point at somebody and say this is a Boko Haram supporter. What kind of military is that? What if Nigerians in anger start attacking our staff all over the country? What will the army say? So that was how they started. And then we responded to say, we explained to say, look, this is what we are doing. All we want is for the military to treat our soldiers well. How do you take soldiers to the war front? You won't give them water to drink for days. You won't give them food to eat. You won't give them ammunition to fight. And so when we highlight these things, it appears to them that, look, these guys are making this war difficult for us. But we say, look, all we want is for our soldiers to be decently treated. If you do all the right thing that we needed to do, you will be able to rout Boko Haram before long. So that was how they started. Then a day after the commander addressed the press conference, they sent a letter, which means it was pretty well planned. They sent him a letter to us, citing the 3 stories I spoke about earlier, and asking us to apologize, retract, and publish apologies in newspapers and online. That was what they did. They never for once contact us to say, look, the way you guys are doing your reporting, we are not comfortable. These are our problems. These are our concerns. That never happened at any time.
All right, Lanre, Jiti Ogunye, who is the lawyer to Premium Times, put out a very scathing letter there about he didn't only focus on this particular face-off between the Nigerian military and Premium Times. He actually put a lot of blame on the Nigerian military as to where, Nigeria is right now. And he said that, look, the Nigerian military cannot lay claims to patriotism or exclusivity of patriotism and all of that. Do you think that this was going a bit beyond the situation at hand?
Well, I mean, I do not really think so. I think, Jiti Ogunye was probably making the point that the army should not put itself above, the society. And that is what you see increasingly, and that is my worry under this dispensation. We see too much of the face, of the army everywhere, as if we're not in a civilian, dispensation. Now, Tosin talked about, Section 39 being stronger. Well, I do agree with you. But also don't forget that Section 22, which I quoted, that says media should monitor governance and hold government accountable, is located in Chapter 2 of the Constitution. And this is the Chapter 2 that defines what is called the directive, principles and the policy of the state, which says that the welfare and the security of the people shall be the primary responsibility of the government. Now, any institution that is connected with the welfare and the security of our people should be ready to answer questions from the Nigerian media, just for us to be able to tell the public that this is how much you are doing. And where there are accusations, like it happened around the the IDP camps and the rest of them, authorities responsible must be ready to answer questions. Now, where you refuse to answer questions from legitimate media outlets, responsible media outlets that are carrying out investigative reporting, you give room for speculation, you give room for rumors on the social media, and nobody knows the truth. So I think that like I said earlier, it is in the enlightened interest of this government, of the army, of the police, and all other law enforcement agencies to provide information to media, to credible media outlets, because not doing that, you allow room for rumors, and the public will not know what to believe. It's worth reiterating that we're in a democratic dispensation, and much as the army is responsible for security, fighting terrorism, that army should not put itself above the society,
all right, Larry,
above the state.
All right, Larry, we'll come back to this. Let's go on a break, and we come back to round off this discussion. But however, don't forget that top of the hour will be time for the news update. Stay with us on TVC Breakfast.
All right, welcome back. You're watching TVC Breakfast. Tosin Akonde is right here in the studio. He's a journalist and a lawyer. Larry Arogundade is also a well-known journalist in this parts. And Musikiliu Mojid, editor-in-chief of Premium Times, is talking to us via Skype. Now, let's quickly put this in before we bring the news update. Musikiliu, do you get a sense that the civilian control of the army is only on paper, or would you say that the military has demonstrated subordination in such a way that we can actually avoid this kind of situations arising?
Well, the point really is that I don't want to generalize. They are fine officers, great, well-educated, well-behaved officers. You know, for instance, you will see that we have the Navy, we have the Air Force, we even have the Defense Headquarters. How come we've not had problems? I think we shouldn't generalize. The problem is the information management within the army. That is the problem. Because by and large, you know, as our democracy matures, the army is beginning to subordinate itself. Is that I don't want to generalize. They are fine officers, great, well-educated, well-behaved officers. You know, for instance, you will see that we have the Navy, we have the Air Force, we even have the Defense Headquarters. How come we've not had problems? I think we shouldn't generalize. The problem is the information management within the army. That is the problem. Because by and large, you know, as our democracy matures, the army is beginning to subordinate itself to civilian control, I must say. And this can only get better.
Okay.
The only problem at this point, there is also a carryover of our years of military rule, where a lot of the officers now, the top officers now, perhaps joined during the military rule, you know, and there is always this feeling of superiority, as if they are more superior than the rest of us.
All right,
So,
Musikilu.
but of course, I'm sure that is ebbing out now. That is dying down. But I think the problem we have is not lack of willingness by the military to subordinate themselves to civilian control. The problem
All right,
is
Musikilu.
information management at this point.
Yeah, Musikilu, we're going to come back to you shortly after this. It's time for the news update. Let's go now to have Azizat Olaloa standing by. Azizat, good morning.
To you, Mike
Morning,
and Ngozi. Interesting topic, really, about how journalists have been treated, and of course, understanding that they are the members of the fourth estate of the realm.
Exactly.
Well, the ranks of Nigeria's ruling party, APC, is swelling by the day. Some days ago, a senator from Akwa Ibom State left the PDP for the APC. Now, former Senate President Ken Nnamani is the newest member of the APC. Nnamani says he is joining the party because of intense demand from his constituents. He led the Senate from 2005 to 2007 as a member of the then ruling PDP, a party he joined when it was founded in 1998. Police in Kaduna have confirmed an attack by gunmen on Zakan village. Zakan is a Fulani settlement in Kara local government area of the state. Spokesman of the command, Aliyu Usman, told journalists that the incident occurred at about 8:30 p.m. on Saturday. He said one person was killed, 5 others injured, and that investigations are ongoing. He also appealed to the public to always assist security agencies with useful information to enable them take proactive measures. Well, the Rivers State Ministry of Health has faulted reports that the state has recorded a death from Lassa fever. The Commissioner for Health, Theophilus Adagme, says the only patient with a confirmed case of the disease had been treated and discharged. The explanation by the Senate Ministry of Health was to assuage fears that the state was currently at risk of another outbreak of the viral hemorrhagic fever caused by the Lassa virus. The Zamfara State's Governor Abdulaziz Yari Abubakar has reaffirmed his commitment to fulfilling his campaign promises to the people. He gave the assurance in Dauran town of Zermi local government at the flag-off of link roads construction across the town. Governor Yari says his administration has constructed more than 700 kilometers of both state and federal roads across the state. The construction of the road was flagged off by the Senate President Bukola Saraki, who congratulated the people for having a dynamic and focused leader. And that's all on the news. It's back to Mike and Ngozi for the rest of the program.
You guys is that for the updates. Right, if you're just joining us, you're watching TVC Breakfast. And we've been talking about the face-off between the Nigerian army and the Premium Times newspaper. We have with us Tosin Akonde with us in the studio. We also have Larry Arugundade, a journalist, and Musikilu Mojid, Editor-in-Chief of Premium Times. Now, Larry, let me come to you on this. When we have a situation like this, what is expected of bodies, journalism bodies like the Nigeria Guild of Editors, Nigeria Union of Journalists, and even the Nigeria Press Council you talked about? What role do they play in trying to resolve a face-off like this?
For them is to stand up to defend the press freedom, and I'm happy that statements have been issued by all these organizations. Then the next step is for us to see the possibility of having a stakeholders dialogue or roundtable to discuss this, so that different parties to the dispute, as it were, could put on the table their grievances. And this happens in all civilized societies, because we cannot claim that the law enforcement agencies do not also have one complaint or the other. It's not everything that the media has done that has been quite perfect, but just as they cannot be perfect in their own job, we too sometimes are not necessarily perfect, but there must be dialogue and not intimidation. And of course, in this particular case of the Nigerian army, I think that the Nigerian media recognizes the enormous sacrifices that they are making in fighting Boko Haram. Newspapers have written editorials to commend the army for the successes they have recorded. But because we are the society watchdog, because people look up to us for credible information, we are bound to raise critical questions from time to time, and they must train their officers to respond to these questions adequately. And that is why you have that office of the army spokesperson, and also for the other law enforcement agencies in our society. So I believe that the Guild of Editors, the Nigerian Union of Journalists, and we media support groups are all stakeholders in this matter. We do not want to see a repeat of what had happened in the past, because what preceded the assassination of Delegiwa, were grave allegations, like this. So it's quite worrisome, and we're concerned about the safety of our colleagues in Premium Times and in all other media outlets, that are facing, one form of harassment or the other. But I believe that times like this, yes, we need to stand up to defend press freedom, but we should also, request that, yes, if there are such, misgivings, then let's have, a roundtable and look at these, misgivings. But I believe that the Nigerian media does not condone professional misconduct. Okay. Beyond the fact that we have regulatory agencies, we have the code of ethics. In fact, individual media outlets also subscribe, to media, code of ethics. So if the media is as responsible as that, I think that the army should always, exercise caution when, it has one complaint or the other. But in this particular instance,
Larry. Okay, at this point, let's bring in the spokesperson of the Nigerian military, Sani Kukasheka. Usman, good morning to you, and thanks for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate your kind response for having me on your program. Thank you.
Yes. Now, with this development between the Nigerian army and the Premium Times, there are growing fears that the days of impunity and this display of crass power on the part of the military seem to be back. How do you reassure Nigerians that this is not really the case?
Honestly, I would like to reassure Nigerians that this is an isolated incident. And I can rest assured you, Nigerian Army is a professional body that adhere to the rules and regulations of its profession and the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. What is happening between the Nigerian Army and the Premium Times is most unfortunate. Unfortunate in the sense that I've heard what Muskilu was saying, and I would like to correct some erroneous impressions to the point that it is not true that the Nigerian Army has not reached out to them. Two of their colleagues I don't want to mention their names, who are very, very prominent, and they are senior in the profession of journalism because they are part of management of the various mediums they represent, were sent to talk to them on our behalf. Personally, I did that to find out what is the problem, why is it that the medium is always antagonistic against the army, why is it that they have not been reaching out to us whenever there are accusations. And I want you to understand one thing. No story, any story that is published accusing someone without fair hearing from the other party, it's tantamount to infringement of the right of that person. I can recall quite a number of such stories. Just yesterday or day before yesterday, there is a story about an alleged lieutenant colonel who describes generals as Nollywood actors. Premium Times did not bother to reach out to the Nigerian army. There are several instances also. Then again, it's so shocking that Muji does not even know my rank. Just to tell you the kind of impression he has about the army. And it is only Premium Times that does not have an accredited defense and security reporter. Just mention any medium in this country and I can tell you who that defense and security reporter is. The last time they had such person was in Ibe, way back 2004. And we have a system. Two things cannot make a right. They should find out what is it that is the requirement when you are reporting security. Because we are dealing with a very, very serious security issue, the fight against terrorism and insurgency. It requires responsibility on both parts, that is on the part of the military and part of the journalists. And I must say, quite a number of our colleagues have been wonderful. And for him to just say this kind of thing is most unfortunate. Nobody is antagonistic. And whenever, take for instance, even this issue now at hand, I was watching you and I called several of your colleagues. Eventually I'm on air. And that is how it has always been. Then the barrister was talking about having this thing, TRADOC and all the rest of it. People should be knowledgeable enough to understand that the Nigerian Army has come a long way. We have a dedicated Department of Civil Military Affairs, in addition to the Directorate of Army Public Relations. And not quite long, we even established a human rights desk. And as time goes on, we keep on evolving things that will definitely enhance the relationship, not only with the media, but the generality of the public. When we had Python dance, exercise Python dance, telephone numbers of all the commanders were given.
Yeah, Colonel Usman. Yeah, Colonel Usman. Let me put you on hold a little. We'll go on a break and then we come back to dwell more on this. Stay with us right now. Right, if you're just joining us, you're watching TVC Breakfast. We've been discussing the face-off between the Nigerian Army and Premium Times newspaper. We have with us, joining us now, the spokesman of the Nigerian Army, Colonel Sani Usman. Now, Colonel Usman, let me ask you this. There were concerns that certainly when defaming or issues of libel comes up and you are not happy about it, there is a certain process to go about it. Did the military exhaust all the standards that is left to it when it comes to either going to court to sue the station for any report you didn't like after approaching them?
I go further, I would like to correct you. I'm a Brigadier General.
Brigadier General, sorry.
All right. There are procedures. Just before we go on the break, I was telling you the effort we have been making to reach out to Premium Times. And you are a living witness to the fact when we had media interaction, I am sure Babajide Otukoju was the one who represented your medium, who also reached out to Premium Times for the interactive session, which event to the theater of operations and subsequently to various locations in the north.
All right.
We seem to lose the
Unfortunately,
line
we've
there.
lost connection there, but we hope to reconnect as quickly as possible. Now, Larry, you want to react to some of the claims made by the Army spokesperson, Brigadier General Sani Usman, who says that, number one, there's this tendency or attitude on the part of the Premium Times where they always seem to be antagonistic against the Nigerian Army. And then there is no accredited reporter attached to the military from the Premium Times. And of course, well, he said they have a human rights desk. You want to wonder if that human rights desk is actually effective. Larry?
Well, I'm happy that Mojid is online, and I'm sure, rather is part of this discussion,
yes.
And he will be able to respond to some of those specific allegations. But I do know that normally to cover some agencies of government, you need a process of accreditation. So one will want to know whether Premium Times had attempted to get its reporters accredited, and this had not happened. But again, I need to just make this point that the fact that a news medium does not have an accredited reporter covering a particular bit does not mean that that news medium does not have the right to ask questions from those authorities, because the media acts in the public interest. The media has a constitutional mandate to monitor governance and hold government accountable to the people. And don't forget that, in fact, we do have a Freedom of Information Act that gives citizens the right to ask questions. So even if one is not a journalist and you are hearing stories about army, you are not sure whether we've lost officers or we're not sure whether the number of Boko Haram have been killed, as a citizen, you can use the Freedom of Information Act to request for information. The Freedom of Information Act does not say that you must be accredited by a particular organization before you can ask a question from that organization. So I think that we need to understand this. And then if the army has a human rights desk, then that human rights desk needs to do more in terms of advising the army, looking at the laws of the land, what you can do. Because what you have seen here clearly is that there is, a kind of anger directed towards Premium Times by, the army spokesman, based on the allegations that he has made. Which
all right, Larry.
That
yes.
Would defend,
Larry, let me put you on hold. Let me put you on hold and bring in Musikilu Mojid in here. Mojid, you heard what the Army spokesman said earlier on. He raised some issues in there. He said they have reached out to you several times concerning the reports from Premium Times. They have expressed their concern. And one other issue he raised about it was the issue of accredited journalists from Premium Times, looking at the fact that reporting security is very sensitive. What have you got to say about this?
Of course, I didn't hear him. I think I lost you for a greater period of when he spoke.
All right.
So, but now, regarding accreditation, this is not the look. I covered the military for decades myself, for over a decade, and I've dealt with army spokesperson, naval spokesperson for the Air Force. I do not know of a spokesperson who will insist that he only wants to talk to accredited reporters, especially when that accredited reporter was sent to that beat by an editor or an editor-in-chief. I don't know whether that makes sense. So I don't know what to say of that. No matter how, of course, reporting the military is a security issue, but it is your place as a spokesperson to be familiar with both the reporter on the beat and the editors in the office. So for me to pick up my phone and say, look, this is what we are working on. What if I doubt my reporter's report and I want to get to the source to confirm? So how do you operate that way? Then it's about him getting across to us several times.
Thank you so much.
I'm not aware of that. I'm not aware of that.
Musikilu Mojid, Editor-in-Chief, Premium Times. Larry Arogundade spoke to us via Skype. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us. And of course, Tosin Akonde, former journalist. Journalist.
Once a journalist is always a journalist.
Always a journalist. All right, and a lawyer speaking to us this morning on this particular issue. Thank you so much. We're pressed for time. Unfortunately, we can't. I would have loved to ask you about, Donald Trump's attitude to the media and how that will rub off on the media all over the world. But there's no time.
We also thank
that.
Army spokesperson for joining us earlier on, even though the line went off, Brigadier General Sani Usman. Thank you very much. Stay tuned now for our next discussion.